Okay, my name is Sara Smith-Silverman. My pronouns are she and they. I'm a professor of history at American River College, and today's date is October 30th, 2023. So let's start off by establishing the basics. What's your full name? What are your pronouns? And what's your date of birth?
My name is Krystal Maylaw. My pronouns are they, them, and I was born May 2004, so I'm 19 right now.
So tell me a little about yourself. What are your interests and hobbies? What do you like to do?
Interests and hobbies? Well, I'm in community college right now. I'm trying to major for journalism. Um, so I like writing a lot. Actually, I don't know if that's true. I don't like writing a lot, but what I do like is finding things out and asking questions. I considered myself like a pretty nosy person in high school, just about all sorts of things. So I think journalism has allowed me to, or the way I see it, like if I get into journalism, I can write about anything I want. And I think that's super cool. Find out about anything I want. In terms of hobbies, I like drawing. I like arts. I feel like right now, I consume more than I make, which is awesome. So,
What kind of arts do you like?
arts do I like? What have I been doing recently? I like music, just all sorts of music. I'm not sure. I have also been really busy with classes, so I'm not like taking time to really like dive deep into art. Um, but yeah,
Okay,
sorry, that
anything
was an
else you want to
awful
say?
answer.
That's okay. Anything else you want to say about interests and hobbies? And what do you just like to do on your free time?
Interests, hobbies. Um, nope.
Okay. So where did you grow up and where do you live now?
Where I grew up in Natoma, Sacramento, and I still live here. Um, yeah, born and raised.
And where do you currently attend college and what do you study?
I attend college at Sacramento City College, and I study journalism.
Are you full time or part time?
Full-time student.
And I know you said a little bit about this already, but what why did you decide to major in journalism and what are you hoping to do after college?
I decided to major in journalism because it um, is a cool way to know everything around you, get to meet new people in your community as a job. I think that's so cool. Um, and I really just like making things and feeling inspired. It's kind of weird because sometimes I read the news and I feel really jaded and I don't know, not ready to exist because everything's kind of awful sometimes. Um, but what surprises me is like the more I get into journalism and the more I try to like find out about things, there is a lot of community and a lot of soul, even in awful situations. So I think that's why I'm in journalism because it does keep me inspired, does keep me in the know, and I like asking questions.
So can you tell me how you identify with regard to your social identities broadly speaking? So race, ethnicity, sexuality, gender, disabilities, class, religion, and so on?
Um, I'd say middle class, lower middle class. Not sure, like officially what I am, but I've lived comfortably my whole life. I haven't had to complain about or not complain. I haven't had to worry about where I live. There's gonna be food in my house, my education, and I'm really grateful for that. I am Asian. My mom is Filipino and my dad is Chinese. Um, so like a mixed culture household, and I like women. I'm non-binary. Uh, yeah. Is did I get everything?
I think the only thing disabilities, neurodiversity, religion.
Oh, religion. Oh, this is really funny. My mom's Filipino, and I think they primarily practice like Catholicism, and my dad is Buddhist, and he's practiced that my whole life. But because we're like they're different, I practiced a little bit of both. But there was one point in my life where my mom would like read me prayer at night. But then I'd go to Buddhist church in the morning. So, um, yeah, I'd say that's my religious background. Oh, but I'm an atheist now. So, uh, and then, oh, shoot.
And then disabilities or anything, do you define yourself as neurodiverse?
Yeah, I have been diagnosed with BPD. Honestly, not sure what that means, but we're here.
Okay, so you said that with regard to your sexual orientation, you like women. Can you elaborate more? Because I think online, when you filled out the questionnaire, you said unlabeled, and so we're getting a mixed mix of things. Do you care to elaborate? What does that personally mean to you? I guess is the question.
Um, I think right now I am questioning if I am a lesbian. Um, I do use unlabeled though. Um, it sounds so corny to say I like don't like being put in a box. Um, and it's not that. I think I just like being able to explore my own identity fully. And of course, I'm still young and figuring things out. Um, so if I like a man, I like a man, I guess. But I think I've only found myself attracted to women wanting to.
Anything else you want to say about that?
No, I'm sorry if that was a confusing answer.
No, that was not confusing. That's understandable.
Figuring it out.
Not wanting to put yourself into a box right away.
Yeah.
So, with regard to your gender, I think you said you're gender nonconforming and non-binary, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Uh, so, what does that personally mean to you?
Personally, um, it means I can express myself however I want to. Uh, it means that I don't have to adhere to any standard of gender. I think it just, in my head, gives me the room to act and be however I want without justification.
And you said that you use they them pronouns. So, can you explain why it's important for you to use they them?
It's important for me to use they, them. Um, this is tough because it's important, but it's not really that like respected uh, by people around me, or maybe just not used to it. But I feel like the times I've been most comfortable to be myself is when I was around people that did respect my pronouns. And uh, using they them pronouns means, I guess, that people acknowledge a facet of my identity and they like accept me fully, if that makes sense.
Is there anything more you want to say about that? So, why you chose they them and why it's important for people to respect your pronouns?
Honestly, I had this best friend in high school and I was talking to him and I was like, I do not feel like a girl um, all the way sometimes. And he was like, "Oh, like what's that about?" And we talked about it, and I was like, "Yeah, but I never use they them pronouns because I don't know. I don't want people, especially adults, to think of me weird. I don't want to take up space like with correcting people or telling them, like educating them in any way, because really I'm just trying to exist." Um, but he was like, "Oh, you shouldn't like be bothered by that." And he's the first person to tell me like, or not tell me, but to use those pronouns. And I felt really safe with him. Um, yeah.
Um, so under what circumstances do you share your pronouns?
Under what circumstances do I share my pronouns? Um, I think I had a bit of an adjustment period because I went to a really like gay liberal arts high school. Like theater was a big thing there, so there are like a lot of queer students there. And I think it's just like habit, like, oh, what are your pronouns? So over there, I was pretty comfortable just being a lot of the times, most of the time. Um, then I started college here and I was like, oh, wait, it's a little different. Um, so now I just kind of don't really bother sharing or introducing my pronouns unless somebody asks. Um, and then even then, like if I'm speaking to a group of people and they're like asking for my pronouns, then I kind of base it on the group of people. Like if I feel comfortable, then maybe I'll say they, them, or sometimes I use she, they. If I am like a little bit scared, I'll just use she, her. Um, but I think the easiest way to gauge is just uh, like the age of the group I'm speaking with. It's no like ill intent when they don't use the right pronouns, I'm sure. It's just habit uh, and not being able to adjust to that. So I feel like sometimes it just makes it comfortable if I say I have she, they pronouns. So that way, if it's out there, they don't mess up. It's not ideal, but um, it's comfortable.
So, um, so sorry, I just had to adjust a tiny bit, tiny thing there. I didn't
That's
actually.
cool.
I lied to you earlier when I said I was going to press stop. I zoomed out a tiny bit. Anyway, so you said you mainly want to share your pronouns in group settings where you feel comfortable, where you feel like. So, would you mind elaborating on that a little bit more? So, what makes you feel? Under what circumstances do you feel comfortable, and is there anything in particular you're worried about? Like if you share your pronouns are they them, what are you worried about in terms of people's responses?
Um, I thought about it a lot. I'm not sure it's people's responses because I know like people aren't like excited to or like they're not homophobic or transphobic. They're not excited to be like, I am a transphobe. It really just is habit and maybe not being around a lot of queer people. But the reason I don't use they, them all the time is because I get a little angry sometimes when I do share my pronouns and people are not really acknowledging it, especially if they ask. Because that is a thing that happens. A lot of people ask, and I'm like, oh, my pronouns are they, them. And then they're like, oh, you're a she, her. So then at that point, I'm like, that's a little annoying. So I guess I just use she, they to not get so pressed about it sometimes.
You like people ask what your pronouns are and then they still use she, her for you, even though they asked? Or is it that they've actually said, no, you seem more like a she, her?
No, nobody's outright been like, you
Okay.
seem like a she, her. Or I think there's like one guy in my class. But yeah, it's funny. People ask, but then they don't. It doesn't mean anything.
So you're not the first person who has said something similar. This sort of wanting to be fully yourself in terms of your pronouns and other aspects of your identity, mainly around people who make you feel comfortable, right? Even if it's not necessarily about, like you said it wasn't necessarily about how they're going to respond to you, or, but then you said it was a little bit about how they would respond to you. So I don't know. I guess, how does it make you feel to feel like you're kind of adjusting yourself a little bit to how, to other people, like, I guess it's like, I don't know how to say this, but how other people understand pronouns and gender.
Oh, can you repeat
I know it's, I started off more convoluted, but
that?
does it make you feel a certain way when you have to adjust how you identify or the pronouns that you use anyway, um, for the comfort of other people, or that to sort of adjust to how other people understand gender?
Oh, can I share something off the record?
Oh, should I pause?
Oh no,
Okay. Off the record? We're on the record. I can
that's
pause.
true. I think it's just or like I just have worries about who it's gonna be shown to, but I think I'm okay with sharing it,
Okay.
depending on where it appears. Or I don't know. I do work at school. I have a job on campus, and I work for the Cultural Engagement Center. Um, my last job was a daycare, a gym daycare. So I didn't. I used she her over there. Um, but when I came here, I was like, oh my god, I can finally use like my actual pronouns because the part of the center that I work for is the Asian Pacific Islander Center, and our office is like right next to the Pride Center. Um,
Sorry.
the Pride Center. So I was like, oh, they're probably like used to this. They're like open to it. Uh, and then they like were not. Anyways, that's the whole story. But uh, I think I'm just a. I think I get mad or frustrated easily about my pronouns and my gender identity because I'm trying to figure it out, and I feel like support is really crucial when you're trying to figure yourself out. So when I do tell people that my pronouns are they them and they still continue to use something other than that, I just find myself limiting who I am in certain ways. Um, like if it's repeated, then I'll find myself trying to be more boyish, honestly, to prove that I'm not a girl, which is I guess an interesting way to respond. I should think about that more.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, you don't want to share pieces of yourself if people aren't going to respect you, right?
Yeah.
And so then it can harm your relationships with other people, because I know from my own experience, if I share a part of myself and then they're not respectful of that, then I'll just get angry at them and want to distance myself from them. And it's a lot to deal with. You know?
Yeah, exactly. I guess like using she her is like or using she her just gives like them no option to disrespect me. I don't know if disrespect is the right word. Sorry.
Um, so would you mind talking some about your coming out experience? How are you figuring out, how did you figure out your identities? How are you figuring out your identities? And Are you out? How like are you out to people around you?
Yes. Damn, sorry. Yes, I am out to people around me. Most people around me. I'm out to my family. There's like a weird point of tension in my family for a bit because I started seeing like queer people in the media um, around middle school. So that's when I went to my mom and I was having a conversation with my mom. I was like, maybe I might like women too. Um, and I don't think she responded the best way. A bit panicked. And I guess when you're panicked, you like all these other emotions come out. Um, so that's not necessarily support. Um, and then in terms of my gender, I was like out at school, and one time my sister said something about like, "Oh, aren't you a they them around my parents?" And then we had to have like a whole sit down conversation about it, um, where they basically were like, "You should have told us this, um, but also we're not gonna use that." So there was that. I feel like for the most part they've been supportive, trying to adjust. I don't think they'll ever use they them pronouns for me, but I do think they accepted that I like girls. And I had this moment with my dad recently where I was crying over a girl. It was really bad. And he just like supported me through that, which was really odd because it's like you've never outright been like, oh, it's okay that you like girls. Um, oh, I support you in that way. But the whole time I was like crying and he was holding me and he was like, it's okay, you're gonna find another person. She's gonna be great. And I don't know, just the first time he kind of acknowledged that in a vulnerable way, which was really nice. So, are they supportive? Yeah, yeah, I'd say they're supportive. And then the whole thing with like other communities that I'm in, like work and school, it's like a mix of both. It's usually like if there's queer people around me, they'll be supportive. If um, people are a little less used to that, then it's whatever.
Um, why do you think it is that your parents have a different orientation towards your sexual orientation as compared to your gender identity?
Probably because my girlfriend's been to our house and my girlfriend's met my parents, and they really like her. So I think that kind of opened them up and made it feel less of like a foreign concept or like weird. I don't know. I really don't know. Um, my gender, like my dad's excuse is so stupid. It's just like that's not a grammar convention we use. I've tried to learn English my whole life and now you're like fucking it up again. Oh, can I cuss?
Yeah, don't worry.
Oh. So I'm like, okay. Um, he's adjusting though. It's a bit weird because he doesn't acknowledge that I'm a they them, but he'll acknowledge that my friends are they thems or non-binary. And he'll respect their pronouns. But it's really sweet still. Sometimes I talk about my friends that use they them pronouns and he has to like step in and be like, "Oh, are you talking about a group of people or like one person?" And I'll clarify. So that's kind of what that is right now.
Have you ever talked to him about why you use they them pronouns and why it's more important for people around you, perhaps including him, to respect your pronouns? That the grammar stuff is can be difficult and it's hard and it's particular, right, to learning English, and there's like you can validate some of that, but how there's something that's a little bit more overwhelming on the other side that's about identity and like do you feel like you've kind of explained that to him?
Um, no, I feel like I haven't explained it to him. I think we had a conversation and he started it with so I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna use your pronouns. So at that point, I was like, okay, there's no use trying. Maybe I gave up a little soon. Um, but then the other thing is, I found that I don't care too much about my parents using my the right pronouns. I think the only time I'm a little embarrassed is when they talk to an adult that does acknowledge that I use they them pronouns, and my parents still use she her. I just feel like embarrassed for them because I don't want them to look transphobic. I know they're not. They're just I don't even know. Talking to my dad. I think I also just assume that he could like see it sometimes in the way that I dress and the way that I act. Like I don't act girlish or like feminine all the time. So I think exposure is probably another thing that helps. Um my parents understand that more. I don't know if like telling them, like explaining them how I feel would do too much.
um, so where do you find the most support and affirmation in your identities?
It's hard to pinpoint an area. Obviously my friends are super supportive. So sorry. My friends are supportive. A lot of them, or like most of them, are cisgendered. Um, I get really, really happy. I get really happy when I meet someone and they do respect my pronouns. But we don't even like talk on a deeper level. They're just like using them, which is weird because that feels like a base level thing. But it makes me happy. So that's like something I have felt nice about recently. Um, this might be weird, but like my clothing sometimes. If I wear like an outfit that's a little more masculine and somebody compliments me, I'm like, oh my god, I can exist and also be liked. So there's that.
So we left off talking about your coming out experience, and you talked a little bit about family, but is there anything else you want to say about being out in other areas of your life, whether it's school, work, friends?
Um, oh, my sisters, they're all young. Wait, my voice. Um, yeah, my sisters are all younger than me. So it's like interesting to see them adjust because of um my parents, and I guess just a lot of people in general, some justified, some not, are have opinions about how much exposure kids should have to my identity, you know? Like it shouldn't be that way because it's literally just who I am. So, but it's weird because my two youngest sisters, they're 10 and 7. They know, they know that I'm not, that I'm like non-binary and I like girls. And the girls part is easy to accept because they've met my girlfriend too and they really like her. Um, but in terms of my gender, I feel like there's a bit of confusion there. My mom told me she has talked to them about it, but I'm not sure exactly what was said. So, if anything, they know about me. Um, they don't use they them pronouns, but that's also because I haven't like specifically said like, "Oh, you should use this for me." I don't know, it's weird. I obviously am not going to get mad at them or upset with them because I have and I don't even know how to begin to explain that or touch on that conversation with them. Yeah.
Do you feel like you have permission to talk to them, or do you feel like that's something that's up to your parents?
Um I definitely feel like I could talk to them if I wanted to. I just don't want it to be like a crazy thing in the family, if that makes sense. But my other sister who's like 13 right now in middle school, 8th grade, she uses them like all the time. She slips up a lot sometimes, but the point is she's like putting the effort to use them and that makes me feel nice. And I love her so much.
I'm sorry, do you mind saying what high school you went to? You said your high school was very gay?
Yeah, I went to Natomas Charter High School. Uh, there's like 5 academies within that, but I went to the Performing and Fine Arts High School. It's a high school, middle school.
You have a, it's great that you had a good experience feeling more free around your identity. Um, it's very different from a lot of students' experiences with high school.
Yeah,
So often students say, oh, in high school, it was actually worse than it is at ARC or SCC or wherever they go to college.
oh, that's surprising. Or I don't know. I get because I guess you have more freedom here than you do in high school, like in terms of who you're surrounded by.
And what classes you take. And
Yeah,
so, yeah,
classes you
I think
take.
that's the key. It's the freedom and being treated more as an adult, kind of.
Yeah.
Um, so, I think there's more questions I could ask about your identity, figuring out your identities, but um, one question I definitely want to ask is, what does it feel like emotionally to have figured yourself out? And I know you're sort of still going through the process, but do you feel happy and empowered in your identities?
Right now, I feel confused and a bit lost, mostly because I know where I'm going and what I want and how I want to be seen. Um, but the point where I question everything is like, how much of this matters and how much of this is going to be acknowledged? What was the question?
Just do you feel happy and empowered in your identity? You said you feel confused.
feel happy and empowered in my identity. When I answer that, I do feel happy when I'm fully myself, but recently I haven't been given the space or the time or the capacity to fully be myself. And so that's like a huge point of frustration recently that I'm trying to be myself, but it's not acknowledged. So then it feels a bit uh, taxing to be queer. But I wouldn't give it for the world. I think I'm just trying to figure out ways I can cope with that. Like, how can I control how people see me? How can I let people know, like, this is who I am? Yeah.
And so where do you find queer joy?
I find queer joy in other queer people. Uh, People respect my pronouns. In media. Um, when people, especially like older people or like grandmas and grandpas, acknowledge that, that makes me happy, like really happy for some reason. Um, my partner. Queer joy. Yeah, I don't know.
Any particular media you're excited about right now?
Media I'm excited about. Uh, oh my god. I might nerd out. And there's this show called Gen V. It's like a spin-off of another show called The Boys. And there's like an Asian character in the show that is like their superpower is that they could be a boy or a girl, which sounds useless, but their boy form and their girl form have like different powers. I thought that was cool. I'll take what I could get. I mean, they're not like the greatest character in terms of like their moral compass, but I'm gonna eat it up regardless. And they're talking to a girl. They're like it's like a plot point that they're having a girlfriend. So I'm like, okay.
How do you watch it? Where do you find it?
Oh, I torrent it. I torrent it. It's on Amazon Prime, but I don't have Amazon Prime.
Okay, Amazon Prime for people who don't torrent, but remember, um, is it real life? Is it like a real? Are the people real, or is it like a cartoon? Or
It's yeah, it's real.
okay,
Yeah, live action, real people.
all right. Anything else you want to say about queer joy?
Queer joy. Yeah, I guess media is a big part of it. Yeah.
And why you said somebody who is Asian and has a superpower where they could be a boy or a girl? Why do those two things together? Why do you find so much joy in that?
I don't really even know because it's not a huge plot point. I think they acknowledge it once. Um, like that intersectionality. I don't want to go into like the details of the show, but basically this lady is trying to like find which superhero is going to be like the most profitable superhero, and that character Jordan gets suggested, and she's like that's an Asian person and they're like gender non-conforming. Like we are not going to make money off of this person. So I was like, "Oh, it's just kind of funny. I'm that. I'm that." Yeah.
You don't find that representation very much.
You don't. You really don't. Uh, I feel like with Asian people, especially, or I feel like there have been a few Asian and queer characters, but they were so annoying. I like this one.
Yeah, I feel like only recently has there been more Asian American queer representation,
Yeah, yeah.
but
There's
it's
like,
still very lacking.
for sure. Yeah. I don't have much to say about that. There was a one character in Orange is the New Black. She's Asian and queer, but she's also just really annoying. And she's like the N-word once, so I was like, okay,
Oh,
I'm not you.
I can't think of who that character was now.
It was a so-so. Like the I think like the only Asian character in the show. Or maybe there were three.
Hmm. Well, that shows you something about my memory, but
It was a good show.
um. So what? Okay. Anything else you want to say before I ask you about religion?
Uh no. I love being gay. Yeah.
Yeah, being gay is great.
It's so awesome. I love it.
Oh, so. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm remembering.
I did not like her.
Yeah, she had. I kind of liked her, but she was also kind of irritating.
Yeah.
She was sort of mixed.
Yeah.
She was very. She came in as kind of a political activist,
Yeah.
which I kind of liked actually. But then there was some aspects of her personality. But okay, so you already talked a little bit about religion playing like so the fact that your mom was Catholic, and I think you talked about going to temple a little bit growing up. So how would you evaluate the role that religion played in your life growing up? Do you think it was largely positive, negative, some a mix of the two?
Um I don't know how much it's like affected me in terms of being queer. It's just kind of there. It's not really a huge part of my life, to be honest. I wish I knew more about it, but I guess it's hard uh, figuring out how to raise somebody when one parent is one thing and the other parent is another thing. Um, yeah.
Do you think religion influenced your parents' reaction at all when you came out?
No, I don't think so. I think if anything is more ethnicity and culture because I don't know too much about it, but I pretty sure there's like a big trans population in the Philippines. Religion. No, I don't think religion affected how my parents feel about my identity.
So how do you think your mom, being from the Philippines, where did you say your dad was from?
Well, he's Chinese, but he was raised in Vietnam.
Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so how do you think ethnicity has played a role in their sort of understanding of your queerness and sort of their reaction to you?
I'm not too sure about my dad. I don't know if there were queer people around him growing up. I'm sure there were. I don't know if they were out. And Vietnam is also like a crazy place to be queer. So
How so?
I honestly don't know too much. I just know it is not okay. As for my mom, there's a really popular talk show host that is a trans woman. Her name is Vice Ganda, and my mom watched her a lot. She's like a young adult, maybe my age ish right now. I don't know when she got popular, but there's like a presence of queer people in the Philippines, and also I'm not sure if it's the language thing or like what actually was going on, but she does talk about a auntie I had who had a wife. I think the reason it's so confusing to me is because she'll say that my auntie had a wife, but my auntie was also an uncle. Um, so she'd go between like using she pronouns and he pronouns, and I didn't understand that. Well, I do in the context of like here, like using different pronouns. But my brain is also like, my mom is not that progressive. Like, what is actually going on here? And I've asked her for clarification a lot of times, and I still don't really know what that was. But I know there was a queer person or a queer couple in her life, and my mom really liked them. Yeah.
So, what do you think that is that there's that disjuncture between, or kind of a disconnect between trans representation and the media in the Philippines, and then sort of how that it seems like there's some disconnect between then how that gets applied to understanding what it means to be trans and sort of fully accepting people in your family who might be gender nonconforming or queer in some way.
Mm, I think my mom is really used to a rigid stereotype or type of queer person. Like when you think of a gay person, maybe you might think of like a really flamboyant like white gay boy. Um so when it's not that, it's a little like there's a bit of questioning there like are you sure that's what you are? Because you don't look like that person over there. Um yeah, I don't know how else to explain it. I had a conversation with my mom once. I was saying something stupid. I forgot like specifically what, but it was something about like being like queer and also Asian and also like someone working in like an entertainment industry. Not that I've ever wanted that, but I'll like have conversations like I should be a superstar or like whatever the fuck. Um but I was telling my mom like, "Damn, wait. There are no like funny, like actually funny like gay Asian people." So like I don't know if that's possible. And she said something like, "Oh my gosh, you should go to the Philippines. Like all the trans people are funny. Like trans people are known for being funny. That's like their thing." So I was like, I'm processing that because I don't want my like I don't know what's funny about it, but I was like, I wasn't thinking about it in that way. Um, it's just weird to think about because I don't want my identity to be like funny. Trans people aren't like there's so much depth. to everyone in my community. That's like weird to pinpoint them as one thing. But it's also a good thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's like when there's queer representation, but that representation tends to be more stereotypical.
Yeah.
And so then it's hard to kind of, it's not purely positive, right?
Yeah.
Just because there's representation, there's like the good and bad that can come from it. It's good that there is representation, but it's not good that people who are trans or like flamboyant gay men or something are viewed in this way that means that they are there for entertainment rather than to fully understand and sort of apply to your own kind of awareness in the actual world.
Exactly. Like, yeah, queer people are funny, but we're also like so much more. And you can't just like cherry pick what traits about us serve you. That was a good way to put it.
That was a good way to put it. What you just said. um, so, so how do you think your racial and ethnic identity shaped your experiences as somebody who's also queer, and just in general? I know it's a very broad question.
Yeah. Um, Culturally, but this is also like a generalization. There's a culture in Asian communities that tells us like there's no room. I don't know how to describe it. I think there's just an expectation that we're quiet and not disruptive. I'm learning about it in my ethnic studies class right now, like the model minority myth. Fucked up for so many people too. Oh my god, can I go on a small rant? For like the longest time, I did not really want to not identify, because of course I am Asian, but like associate with a lot of the Asian community because there's like a lot of like anti-blackness in the Asian community, honestly. But I think taking the ethnic studies class was cool because then I learned like there's a reason for that. The model minority myth is like pushing this like there is created to create tension between like black and Asian communities when really there could be solidarity. Sorry, that was random as fuck. um
I think that's an important point to make, right? The creation of the model minority myth is divisive. It's meant to sort of divide communities of color from each other so that they don't work in solidarity. And instead, for Asian Americans, identify with whiteness rather than and see black people as being over there, right?
yes, I think that's what I was trying to because there's like a culture of like assimilation and just be as normal as possible and being queer, I felt like I'm not that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is my ethnicity and race has informed my identity in a way where it was like, oh, sure, I guess you could be queer, but just not in a loud way.
Because you're a second generation immigrant too. So
Yes.
that pressure to kind of assimilate and excel is you can feel that from your family more, and just sort of being within American culture, as you're saying more.
Yeah. It's weird because my parents, I want to say like they did so much work to try to fit in and be normal, and I'm like over here like undoing all of that. I mean, it's harmful to them too because like you lose bits of your culture when you try to blend in.
Yeah, that's an important point to make, right? So, like this pressure that Asian Americans feel in general, Asian Americans from immigrant families feel in particular to assimilate and be as normal as possible. What effect does that have on queer folks within the community?
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you in the ethnic studies class right now?
Yes.
Is it talking about some of that nuance, like the queer Asian American experience, or just the queer experience for of people of color? Or
Well, we haven't really touched on the part because it was an 8 week class, so it started pretty recently. I think I'm on
oh,
week
okay,
2, week 3. Yeah.
okay, so you're not there yet. If you're going to get there,
Hopefully we get there. Hopefully, yeah.
um, it's really nice that the ethnic studies courses are being required now
They are? I didn't know that.
to transfer to CSU.
Oh, shoot. I didn't know that. That's super cool, though.
You mentioned that you're Filipino and you are, would you say you're Vietnamese or
Chinese. Chinese.
Chinese?
Yeah.
Chinese from Vietnam.
Yes.
Right. So, what was it like growing up with sort of two cultures?
Um, it was cool. I think one part I'm really happy about is like I get to try lots of foods, especially because my dad's Chinese, but he's born in Vietnam. So I like try Chinese food, Vietnamese food, and Filipino food. I think it's so beautiful how food like unites us all. Um, the religion part was like kind of confusing a little bit. Um, yeah, but I it's still like am Asian, so there's a lot of similarities within those two cultures. So it wasn't that crazy.
And do you speak other languages?
I don't. Yeah, because my parents couldn't speak their like native languages to each other, so there's no like teaching me, which is sad. But I do want to learn.
When you think about learning other languages, what are you thinking about learning?
Um, Tagalog, the Filipino language. Um, Pretty sure my dad speaks like 3 languages, like Cantonese, Vietnamese, and something else.
Oh, in addition to English?
Yeah, in addition to English. In addition to English. Yeah, both of my parents speak English. Um, but that's like a harder, crazier language to learn. So I have been thinking about tackling Tagalog first.
And why is that important to you?
Um, it's important to me because I want to be able to speak to my grandparents. Um, they do speak a little bit English, or like we have conversations, but I feel like there's a lot more, a lot less barrier and ability to connect when you can speak to someone in their native language.
Are your grandparents here?
My grandparents are here. They moved here when I was 5.
And so, when did your parents immigrate, and why do you think they immigrated?
Let's see. I think my mom was a young adult when she immigrated here, and we have family in the US, so she was able to live with them. But she immigrated after college to try and get oh, I don't know, CLS certified lab something something. Um, but she works like in the lab with like blood, so she's trying to she moved here for like career reasons. And then my dad was a Vietnamese refugee, Chinese Vietnamese refugee, Vietnam refugee. Um, so he moved here when he was in middle school. He actually lived in New York for a little bit, and then for some reason moved to Sacramento and went to school at McClatchy,
New York City.
New York City. Yeah.
Um, so, why did they end up in Sacramento? Do you think?
Um, trying to remember. I know he's told me once. Um, but so my grandpa and my uncle came first, and then my dad followed, and then my grandma got here at some point. But I think it's just easier to, like, financially and also in terms of the Asian community. Like, there's a good Asian community here. Um, just felt more reasonable to move here.
What do they do for a living?
They do for a living. My mom works for Vitalent. I think it used to be called Blood Source. She does blood work, um, like tests the blood. I forgot what the formal position name is. And then my dad works for Verizon and he does a lot of coding. I also don't know the name of the position. That's embarrassing. I'm gonna find out.
So how would you said you would define your family's class status as middle class? Has it always been middle class?
Um, Me growing up, yeah, it has. Um, my dad, no, he lived in government housing. My mom also lived in like a lot of, well, the Philippines is like there's a lot of poverty there, so that's how she grew up. But um, my great aunt is rich, so when she came over here and lived with my great aunt, I think there's a bit of she lived comfortably.
And so when you say middle class, why do you define your class status as middle class? What does that mean to you?
I live in the suburbs. I haven't had to worry about housing or food or education. I just don't really struggle when it comes to my class.
And why did you choose to go to community college?
It was not my choice. I wasn't doing well my senior year, so um, my parents thought it would be for the best if I stayed here with them for a bit. But I'm glad I'm here. It's like financially probably the best decision.
Does your family help you with paying for education? Your education?
Yes, my family helps me paying for education.
And you're also working, right?
I am. Yeah, I've had 3 jobs since I started community.
Do you mind elaborating on sort of where you've worked and how you've liked your jobs?
Yeah, I started off at McDonald's. I was like job hunting for a while and nobody hired me. And I walked into the McDonald's, sat down for an interview, and the lady straight up was like, "You're hired." Um, so I was like really excited about that. And then I was like, "Oh, there's a reason why she hired me so fast because people are quitting like crazy because it was not a great place to work." So I quit that job. I worked at a daycare job. Um, it was like a daycare within a gym, so it wasn't technically a daycare. It's more like, oh, we'll watch your children while you work out. Um, that was a fun job, but I found myself anxious a lot because I think I didn't really like not get like I got along with my coworkers just fine. Uh, but like a lot of gym bros, so it's hard to like be fully comfortable. Um, but the children were awesome.
The children were gym bros.
The children were gym bros, but you know what they were?
What?
Addicted to Prime. They were addicted to Prime. The drink, like the energy drink. So like being around children that are like buzzed up on Prime was also
Wait, how old are the children that are drinking
we
Prime?
we had like two separate sections. One for like kids 3 months to 4 years, and then 4 years to 12 years. So I guess like anywhere from like 7 to 12, they were drinking Prime.
And that's an energy drink?
It is an energy drink, I think. It's like a workout drink or something. I'm not actually sure.
But it has
I
caffeine in it.
I think I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. Don't quote me.
I didn't know that kids were drinking energy drinks.
On like two separate occasions, some kids came in and were like, "Oh yeah, like I drank so much Prime that I like threw up." And then someone was also showing me like a part of the Prime label that was like pregnant women do not drink this. Um, it's cool.
So, aside from the fact that there are a lot of gym bros there, how did you like that job? Did you feel like you could be out at that job or at McDonald's?
Out at McDonald's, it's like so fast and busy that it didn't really matter. Like I was just making fries and like doing takeout orders that I was like less of a person and more of just a worker there. Um, at my daycare job, I wasn't out to my coworkers, but it's also just like a really friendly environment. So I'm not sure what would have happened if I did come out. I'm sure um, a good number of my coworkers would not care too much or like put the effort into remembering my pronouns. But I also think like um, a good number of my coworkers would. It's like half and half. And then I just didn't want to deal with like the parents thing. Like if that was a issue with the parents that I was like using they them pronouns. That's just a lot
Would
and
have
not my
been
problem.
funny if children ended up at a gym daycare and they came out using they them pronouns.
Yeah. No, I there were some kids over there like around the 10 to 12 age that were talking about like being queer or trying to figure out if they were queer or like queer media, and I didn't really like know what to say. I was like, "Oh, that's cool," but I wouldn't like take that as an opportunity to come out.
You didn't take that as an opportunity to tell them that being queer is better than being straight.
No. No. But, you know, I sneak them like a, "Oh, cool, good for you."
um, so, how many hours a week do you work now?
I work part-time. Let's see, 6 hours, 3 days, 18 hours.
And was that the same at your previous job?
Um, my previous job was super flexible, so I just kind of worked when I wanted to, but like 4 hour shifts. So I think it's a little bit more. I want to say like 4 hours more than my regular workload at the other job when I quit.
And so, I'm, what are you making? Are you making, like, if you don't mind my asking, how much money do you make?
Um, I just started, so I don't actually know, but I think I get paid monthly, which is like kind of a bother because I used to get paid bi-weekly. Uh, but monthly, if I work 18 hours a week, I think it's around 1,000 per month.
And how do you get by on that much money?
How do I get by? My parents support me a lot. I think I'm saving up money for when I move out. Um, but my parents are very like, oh, don't worry about like paying for living costs or anything like that right now. Just save up so that when you move out, you can support um, the family too and your sisters because they're gonna go to college too.
Are you living at home right now?
I'm living at home with my family.
And are you thinking about moving out at some point?
Moving out when I go to college, when I transfer. I yeah,
Are you looking forward to moving out?
I am. I am. In terms of like my queer identity, yeah, I think that's gonna be awesome. Financially, maybe less awesome. And like in terms of my like mental stability, we'll see.
So sounds like you don't have a lot of financial stress right now. You might in the future, but what did the number? So you're going to school full time and you're working around 18 hours a week. Does it ever make it difficult to get your work done for your classes or to focus, I guess, on your classes?
No, off the record, like the place I work does not really care if I like spend my time doing homework. So I kind of clock in, do a few tasks, and then do my homework while getting paid.
Okay, you said off the record,
Yeah.
but it's on the record until you tell me to take it off the record. Okay, so just remember that.
Okay.
So you said, I don't know if you feel comfortable talking about this, but you started to, I sense some hesitation, but do you want to talk about a little bit more about what it's like being queer at your current job?
Sure. Being queer at my current job. I work for the Asian and Pacific Islander Center at Sacramento City College. They have me introduce my pronouns at every event, at every club meeting, even on like Zoom meetings. It's next to my name, like they them pronouns. Um, but a lot of the people I work with are older. Like there's only one other student assistant that I work like closely with. Um, so I think it's a little hard for them to adjust. I don't know if they're trying to adjust because they still use she, her regardless. But I just thought it was weird because the Cultural Engagement Center does house the Pride Center too. And I know our center has worked closely with the Pride Center to host events and stuff like that. So I'm trying to navigate and figure out like the discrepancy there. Um, I'm trying to like help in small ways that I can though, because there's obviously like queer Asian people and it's important for them to be acknowledged. So like at our events or when we're tabling, we'll have the flyer for like the Asian and Pacific Islander Center, and I'll like sneak in the Pride Center flyer too. We see you, kind of.
Kind of, it's an interesting point, right? Because there's something that's nice about acknowledging the importance of asking for pronouns and giving people the space to share their pronouns. But it's not that great to feel like you always have to share your pronouns and you can't expect that people will always respect your pronouns under those circumstances. So it's almost like you lost the option about whether or not to share your pronouns.
Yeah, it's weird. It feels very like a performative thing that's going on, because like they want to be seen as accepting and inclusive, but I can't really see like them putting in the work.
Well, they're not alone. I mean, that's very common, right? Like people have realized, some people who are progressive, liberal, well meaning, have realized at some point that I'll share my pronouns and I'll ask other people their pronouns. But it takes more than that, right? But a lot of people, I think that's where you stop.
Yeah.
What do you think people can do to put in the effort to actually use the correct pronouns in addition to sort of, asking about pronouns?
Um, oh, we kind of talked about this earlier during a break about how it is important to like stand up for yourself. Sometimes I worry like um, how much of it is my responsibility to uplift that and encourage queer acceptance in my community. Um, it's weird because one part of me is like, that's not my responsibility. Like, I am doing work just existing. Um, like, my identity shouldn't be taxing to me. But then the other part of me is like, what about the other queer Asian people? Like, aren't you, I don't want to say paving the way because I'm barely doing anything. But like, aren't you making it so that more people can feel comfortable and accepted in these communities? Um, So I kind of flip flop between the two. I wish I did correct people more often. I feel like that's a good place to start because I can't tell if it's like, I don't think it's ignorance. I think people are well intending. So maybe it is forgetfulness or they're not used to it. Um, it's correcting people. Also, just allowing a space where people feel welcome, like having, um, I guess, hiring people like me. Like, there are people in this space and they're also doing things, like, they have a space in this community. And then just listening and learning. I don't really know.
I think when we think about like the work of the Pride Center and the work that we have to do to help people understand the importance of using the correct gender pronouns and, just generally respecting trans and queer students of various backgrounds. Um, we often think about, I don't know where I'm going with this and why I'm talking, but I feel like, yeah, you bring up an important point that there can be an assumption of allyship, that maybe there's actually more work that needs to be done right there. There's some important indicators that people are allies, right, who are doing the work of equity, but it's like even within these equity communities, more work is needed
Yeah,
rather than just going outside to everybody else, right?
yeah. That's something I think about too. Like the mindset that I'm doing the most work or I'm already doing work. Um, I think I am really trying to, or not trying, I feel like I have been trying to shift my mindset into like, there is always work that needs to be done to make people feel accepted. Not even just in terms of like queer people or Asian people. Like, I want to make sure that I'm accepting of like my other um, brothers and sisters and people of color and class and disability. There's always ways I can be better. And I think people should try to navigate um, things with their own version of like, you can be better. Like, I'm good, but I can be better. I don't know.
Yeah, that's well said. So I realize we haven't talked about disabilities and mental health issues. Do you feel comfortable kind of elaborating on this topic and sort of how you said you have borderline,
Yeah.
yeah, and anxiety, right? Is that also
Um,
something?
yeah, I think I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder.
How does that affect you? Especially, how does it affect your education?
I'm gonna be like so straight up. I don't know what borderline is. I know I've been diagnosed with it. I don't know what that means for me. I know I've been medicated for it. Still not sure what that was supposed to do. Um, my anxiety, it's been a lot better over the past few months, but it's obviously like always gonna have a presence there, especially like educationally, because the major that I'm trying to achieve, like journalism, is such a social major. Um, but I'm passionate about it. So, yeah, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, do you think that, I know you said you don't fully understand what borderline is, and that makes sense to me, even though I don't know that much about it myself, but I feel like people often get diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, and sometimes it's accurate and sometimes it's inaccurate. I know that much. Sometimes that's a misdiagnosis, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what's happening in your case. But clearly, there's kind of a issue with your, I don't know, medical. the way that you're getting help from medical professionals, right? If
Yeah.
you're having a hard time figuring out that stuff out.
Yeah. I don't really know. I guess I've been explained it a few times. And the symptoms line up. I guess I've always like felt I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know.
Do you think either one has affected your education, like how well you've done in school? You said you didn't do that well in your senior year of high school.
Oh yeah. There were other circumstances that led to that though. Like in terms of my mental health. I feel like when I crash, I really crash. Um, I don't know how much of that is like attributed to whatever mental disorders I have, or I just get kind of crazy sometimes.
Were you totally online at that point?
Online?
Yeah.
No, it was in person.
Oh, okay. So if you ever struggle in your classes, what do you think the main reason is that you struggle? I mean, is there a general way to kind of answer that in a general way, or does it feel more specific to certain contexts?
I mean, I feel like it's more specific to certain contexts. It's more specific to certain contexts, but in terms of support, just feeling comfortable in a classroom is really important in all sorts of ways. Is also like in relation to what curriculum you're teaching. Like if you're in a performing arts class, there's like different ways to make someone feel comfortable as opposed to like an ethnic studies class. So,
Can you think of any examples of what professors have done to make you feel comfortable or to make students in general feel comfortable?
mm,
They'd like maybe like to see repeated even.
I love when teachers like ask. Oh, maybe I should cough a bit.
Oh yeah, feel free. I'll allow you to cough.
Thank you for your permission. Um, wait, can you repeat the question?
Oh yeah, have professors done anything and let me know if you need a break. But have professors done anything in particular? And any? Can you think of any examples of what professors have done to make you feel comfortable in the classroom?
When professors ask for my pronouns, like everybody in the class's pronouns, so that's like in the air. Um, I guess like just fostering a community in general is great. I mean, like a small one. So like getting to know the students, having them like or like allowing them to talk to themselves, talk to each other, and talk about themselves. Um, I guess a lot of it is like foundational. Like these are the things that you should start with, maybe. Um, just really making clear what the boundaries are in the class, if that makes sense.
So is there anything else you wanted to say about mental health stuff, disabilities, how they've impacted your education?
No, I don't think so.
Anything else about how you think the college or professors can accommodate you and other students who might be having, like anxiety, other mental health issues?
Mm, it's hard to say because a lot of people experience their symptoms differently, but definitely like fostering an environment where you're comfortable with your classmates and your professor has, I think, helped me um, look forward to the classes and not take a toll on my mental health.
And have mental health issues ever interfered with you sort of getting assignments in on time, that sort of thing?
Um, in high school, yes. Now I feel like it's probably just laziness.
I'm not, I know you said that with confidence. I'm not entirely convinced, but anyway. Okay. So, Let's get more into the education section. I know we've talked a little bit about education, but so I usually start with this very broad question. Can you tell me about your educational journey from high school to the present day?
High school to the present day. Um, I'd say I was a pretty great student. Straight A's, uh, B's in math pretty regularly. That's why I'm not a STEM major. But in terms of academic achievement too, I was like in the student body like 3 years of my high school, and
Oh, student government?
student government,
Oh.
yeah, student government, or we called it ASB, um, student government, and then I became like the vice president of student government my senior year, which is like ironically when I was like just crashing, like failing all my classes. So, model student. Um, and then I think I've been picking it back up since I was in community. There's more urgency like this year too, because I'm about to transfer soon. Um, yeah.
And I know you said you were in a very gay high school,
Yes.
quote unquote gay high school. What was it like being a queer student at your high school?
Um, Beautiful. It was beautiful because I could demand things without being looked at weird. Um, I had the capacity to expect better, and also there's like a culture of like being able to correct someone and not feel weird or even being corrected. There were times I had to be corrected, be told like what you said was weird, and I feel like that's great. I'm so grateful for that. Now it's like I get worried people won't approach me if I said something weird because they don't want to cause like any like tension or disruption, but I think me as a person, like I want that. I want to be better. I want you to feel comfortable around me.
Were any of your courses in high school, like classes in high school, queer or trans inclusive in terms of the curriculum?
Mm, theater, theater. I took a few theater classes, but I'm not a theater kid. I feel like that's self-explanatory. Like arts, really, in general. You make art about being gay, it's like it's art. Um, in terms of the more academic courses, I had really great English and history teachers that integrated that into the curriculum. Like, I feel so lucky that I can say um, my high school curriculum did cover uh, queer historical figures or like queer experiences.
Did your classes were they inclusive of the Asian American experience?
Asian American experience. Um, yeah, I feel like my teachers, my history and English teachers, like specifically, like I love them. Um, they try to be as inclusive as possible with like all facets of identity. I feel like that's a little, I don't know if it's rare because I haven't been to any of the high schools, but
Seems rare.
yeah, they did emphasize like a lot on like race and ethnicity and those experiences, disability, cultural differences. Uh,
Disability even.
yeah, I thought that was crazy. I mean, sad to say it is, but
Yeah, I feel like disability is largely excluded from the curriculum.
yeah,
It's rare that you, especially yeah. I think it's pretty rare.
yeah. Um, we got cut short like junior year, but we had a project. We got cut short junior years because of COVID. We had a project about World War One and was it one? Oops,
Oh,
oopsies. Maybe I didn't learn. like the Nazi regime and
World War II.
World War II.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. World War II and the Nazi regime and like different experiences within that. We learned about gay Jewish people or just like gay people living under that, disabled people. Yeah. And then the civil rights movement. Like there's so much under that we learned about.
Do you remember learning about the Asian American movement?
Asian American movement? No, but to be fair, I didn't really like care for that. Oh, please don't put that in.
Why did you just say that?
I taking like the ethnic studies courses now. It is like misguided and like outdated of me to think so, but I have always been like um Southeast Asians. Like I don't really know much of what we struggle with. I think culturally, yeah. In terms of discrimination, I don't know. I don't know. I've been like thinking about that recently. Um, yeah.
Well, that might also be an indicator. It's like your high school curriculum was pretty inclusive, but maybe there was still more to learn too, if you're sort of learning some new stuff right now, you know? And
Yeah.
I know you learn new things at different phases of your life, but still.
I forgot like honestly, um, probably it was like a lot of my unwillingness to learn, which is embarrassing to say, but
Well,
yeah.
that's a very real experience too, right? Um, okay, well, I know I'm just asking about a lot of identities, but what about Asian American queer literature, culture, history? Do you remember ever learning anything about that?
Um, in high school or just like in general?
Well, in high school, yeah, let's stick with high school, I guess, since we're still in high school. Or let's just say in general, high school and in general.
In general. Um, in my women's studies class, I took that 2 semesters ago. We learned about that. And then I think touched a bit in my sociology class. And then I don't know what's to come in the ethnic studies class, but with where it's going, I feel like we'll eventually touch on that. In high school, we had an Asian American literature unit, but that got cut short because of COVID. So, um, yeah.
So, why it seems like you're choosing to take some classes that are more inclusive of sort of the, you know, I guess I could say diversity of people's experiences in the US. Why did you choose to take these classes in, like, sociology, women's studies, ethnic studies? Like, you didn't know that ethnic studies was even a requirement,
Yeah.
but you're choosing them for yourself. So, why do you think you chose to take all these classes?
Um, I just want to be better, um, more accommodating, more inclusive. Um, yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. I think it does not only strengthen uh, journalism when you are those things, um, but it's important to be navigating journalism and news and writing news in a way that does acknowledge that there are different experiences from your own. And I think if I do become a journalist and if I do write things for the world to see, like news specifically, it's like my due diligence to know.
Yeah, journalism is fundamentally about understanding people's lives, right?
Right, right. And it can do like a lot of harm too if you don't. really know what you're talking about and you don't know what language to use. Um, Especially in terms of race, too. Like, there's so much implicit bias and ways you frame articles that can do harm, which is surprising. Not surprising, but like I've been learning about ways in my sociology class that uh, journalism is harmful in ways I didn't even expect. Like my sociology professor showed us like this one example of like there's like a police brutality piece next to a piece about a kid who like won an award for like an academic award for something, and the academic award was like blown up bigger on the newspaper in comparison to the police brutality piece. So in that way, like visually and overall, you're minimizing like the experiences that you deem less important. And the police brutality piece like was also pertaining to race, so
It's also pretend what?
pertaining to like race, like racial
Pertaining
tension.
to race, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so if you could, would you, I mean, what would you say, or why would you say it's important for classes in terms of the curriculum to be inclusive of the queer and trans experience and maybe the queer and trans, like the experiences of queer and trans people of color in particular?
Um. Like what classes are you talking about specifically?
Think I'm thinking like in the abstract. So I guess in terms of classes you've taken, why did it feel important to you for the queer experience to be covered? And personally, and why do you think if your answer is different, do you think it's important in general?
I think it is important. I think with some subjects, especially like the classes that I was just talking about, like sociology and ethnic studies and women's studies, English, history, anything under humanities. I'm not a STEM major, so I wouldn't know too much about that. Um, like queer identity, queer literature, queer art, queer language. It's just naturally a part of that, naturally a part of those subjects. And it feels kind of stupid to gloss over them, or like it almost feels intentional if you choose not to talk about it in your curriculum because it is part of like a large experience. I don't know if that made sense or something.
Yeah. I mean, anything else about like why does it feel? I mean, you said you did talk about this some already, but is there anything else you want to say about why it feels important? Maybe even for, like for students in particular. I mean, it doesn't have to be for students who are from like oppressed or marginalized backgrounds or underrepresented backgrounds, right? I feel like that curriculum can feel that much more important for students from, underserved communities, marginalized communities. But it's also important for people who are more privileged too. And we all have privilege in our various ways,
Yeah.
right? But like, yeah, anything else you want to say about that? Like, just why it's important for the student body as a whole to learn this stuff?
Yeah, I think I just speaking as someone who I feel does have a lot of privilege, me and um, people who I also feel have privilege in some ways have to do better to uplift the community as a whole. So you can't really like uplift people if you don't know about them or know about their experiences. Yeah.
Is there anything you can think of, anything else you can think of about what faculty can do in the classroom outside of the curriculum to make queer and trans students feel welcomed?
It's hard to say because so much of it is like in your head, almost in your mindset. I feel like you can't, or like you can. I mean, I feel like you can't get as much work or as good work done if you aren't able to like shift whatever biases you have in your head. So I feel like it starts there. And I feel like when people talk about like doing work, they're talking about like, oh, um, read the news, read a book, take a class, like all this academic stuff, which is important too, I think, if you have access to that. Um, but also just being around um, people from like queer communities, supporting them in ways that you can is important. Being okay with making mistakes too. I feel like sometimes hesitancy to learn is a lot of like, I don't want to mess up and do more harm than I do good. Um, or there's a pressure to be perfect. I don't think there is. I think the baseline is just don't be like outright transphobic or homophobic or closed off. And a lot of people, they're not that. So students appreciate when you learn.
Um, is there anything you've experienced in the classroom that, as an Asian American student, or that you feel like, is there anything faculty can do to make Asian American students in particular feel more included in the classroom that you can think of?
Mm, no, I can't think of anything in particular.
I think some of what you were just saying can also apply, right? It's like
Oh
for
yeah.
people from marginalized groups in general. Um, but and I think it's important what you were saying about like bias and how you think and how you approach people
Mm,
and willing to put in the effort.
yeah.
Um, okay, so I did want to ask before we finish. I know there are all sorts of questions I could be asking, but I definitely want to ask questions about campus life in general.
Mm.
So, how has your experience been at SEC so far? Like, have you ever felt any kind of harassment, discrimination, bias because of your queerness or your other identities while in college?
Um, mm, no, I wouldn't go as far as to call it that. I don't think I have.
Um, what do you think the college can do to make queer and trans students feel more included, just in general?
Hire queer professors.
Have you had queer professors?
Yeah, like two. It was awesome.
Why do you think that representation matters?
Um, I feel like every student deserves a professor or like someone to look up to and feel comfortable with.
I haven't. There don't seem to be a ton of queer professors. Maybe more at SEC than ARC.
Yeah.
In my experience, anyway.
Oh, there's like this whole thing like I had an English professor she's like pretty old, and she said she used they pronouns. Well, she said she used she, her, they pronouns. But it's really funny, like the way she was talking about it, cause she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a she, her. Like I don't really have any like gender non-conforming experiences or like non-binary experiences." But I think it's cool what you guys are doing, so tack the they on. I thought that was sweet and cool.
It was kind of like an expression of solidarity.
I think yes, yes, yeah.
Um, so, anything else you feel like you want to say about what the college could do to make queer and trans students feel more included, or queer and trans students of color in particular? Oh, I haven't asked you about bathrooms.
Oh yeah, bathrooms. Wow, I didn't even think about bathrooms. I pee a lot.
Oh, yeah, because you drink a lot of water.
I do. um, I think that's just an expectation I had going into college though, because there were gender neutral bathrooms at my old school. Like I already knew like there's not gonna be that here, so it didn't stress me out too much. But some days when I feel more masculine, I have like moments where I'm like, damn. Like I walk in the bathroom and I'm like, damn, I am a girl. um, yeah, not too crazy.
Did you prefer to use the gender neutral bathrooms at your high school?
I did. I did.
And why do you think you preferred that? Like, how did it make you feel to have access to a gender neutral bathroom?
Just made me feel acknowledged. Wow, I wish I had something like more important to say about this. But it was a single stall bathroom, so I felt great. Because the boys' bathroom and the girls' bathroom were not single stalls. So, the non binary people and the trans people get their own stall. That was great. And then people started using the space to like vape and like have sex. So,
Yeah, it seems problematic.
yeah.
And so then it wasn't accessible.
And so it wasn't accessible because they like closed it down and they had a teacher stand outside of it to make sure you weren't using it for those reasons. So now it felt like louder. Like it was like enough like yes, I am like trans and non-binary, I promise.
Yeah, that seems intimidating
It does.
for young people, especially coming into their identity.
Yeah. I wish it was normal. Oh, actually, the one thing that I do feel like is important is locker rooms, especially because you're changing. Um, and I feel like a lot of, I don't know if I'm allowed to say dysmorphia, but I hate that I have boobs. Like, it doesn't feel like it fits me sometimes. I wish I looked more manly. So it's weird, like, having boobs in front of other people sometimes. I wish there were gender neutral locker rooms.
Yeah, it seems like sports is like not the last frontier because there are all these other battles. But yeah, it's the same at ARC where the locker rooms just aren't inclusive.
Yeah,
And it's required to take a PE class too, I think.
I think so, yeah.
So what are you supposed to do?
I don't know.
Um, so where do you find community? Do you find community on campus?
Yeah, I find community with my friends. The API Center is great. They host a lot of events. And then just a lot of cool people. My classes recently, yeah.
And why, how important do you think community is for your sense of, I guess, belonging on campus? Sense of investment, that sort of thing.
Um, I think community is interesting because you really like control how involved you are with the culture and the campus and everything. So if you didn't really want to, like, you just do your classes and go home. But when you do get to know your community, um, there's so much more opportunity and you meet so many cool people. What was the question?
Just community, why is it important? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to give you a chance before we end to return to any questions earlier in the interview. Anything you want to add that you haven't had a chance to say?
Mm, I feel like I don't know how like applicable this is. And I don't really know much about like how professors and teachers are trained. But I know at my old high school there was a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and they held workshops for teachers to learn how to be more like inclusive in their classes. I feel like that was important. That was like a cool step to take as a school. Um, but then the other thing was that it wasn't really mandatory for teachers to take a part of that. So it's like I don't know how much it helped because if you were like looking forward to take those workshops, then you probably are already on the right track and doing the work that I feel like was important. And then if you like were against it, then you weren't, nothing was changing. Um, I feel like hiring a good, diverse staff is important too. Um, because obviously, like the student body is going to be different, and your staff should reflect that, so that students have people to relate to in like all facets, their identity. Also, I don't have any like suggestions per se, but I have like a crazy bone to pick with like the Title IX officers at like every school. The Title IX officers, I don't get why it's just one person in charge of like the entire equity and inclusion stuff. That doesn't make sense because you're like trying to address all these issues within that with one person. I don't know if that's like the case for every school, but
Did you
there's
have
like
a
a
bad experience?
yes, I do. Oh my god, I can talk about it now.
If you feel comfortable.
Well, it has to do with like assault though.
Oh,
I don't know if that's useful.
it's up to you what you feel comfortable. I think anything you want to say is actually helpful.
Okay.
But also I don't it's totally dependent on what you feel comfortable saying.
Yeah. Um, there's an issue at my school where I was assaulted by somebody. Oh, it was like sexual assault. Um, and I went to the school to like I didn't want to make a scene, so I just asked to change classes, and then it kind of came up, and so the Title IX officer stepped in and tried to help, but they didn't really help. Um, they kind of made things worse, actually. I feel like they invalidated my experience a lot, and they made the person who did it make a slideshow about why assault is bad. I feel like that was a really odd way of handling that. Um,
Did you have to watch the slideshow?
no, I didn't have to watch the
Okay.
slideshow. But
That would be insane. Okay.
it's so
It's
insane. Um, but so then I talked to like some other people and found out that this was like an ongoing, reoccurring problem. Um, Another thing they also do is they don't make the person who, like the perpetrator, change classes. They make the victims or survivors change their classes, which is odd because you're like displacing your whole life when something happened to you. I wish people would promote the counseling services on campus a lot more too and emphasize that mental health is important. I feel like a lot of students need that but don't necessarily know where to get it. Um,
I'm sorry that you had that experience. I've heard similar stories.
yeah, whack. I'm over it now though. That's all.
Well, it is like under resourced, right? And maybe there's some improper training, and the ramifications or the repercussions for problematic behavior seem so minimal compared to what the behavior was.
Yeah. Oh, that is another thing though. Like what's like textbook policy called? Like the the big book that all schools have on like all their policies.
Hmm.
I forgot the formal name for that, but I was so mad about what happened to me and my friend that we tried to like look into it. And they have all these like legal words of like what they consider assault and the consequences for those types of actions. And it's just not really covered in the policies at all. It's so vague that the staff or the Title IX officer can interpret it how they want to. And that's a problem because how else are you going to avoid like biases when handling these situations? Like there's a lot of tendency to not take um, like women or like disabled people or women of color especially like seriously when they come to you with problems like these. So I feel like a great place to start would be like rewriting the policies if need be.
Okay, anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Thank you.